Colleen. This video is on alignment, so we're going to start with some basics, whether you're a beginner or just need a little fresher upper. So we are going to start with a little bit of a warm-up to get our body kind of loosened up. So let's go ahead and start on our backs. Come all the way down to your back and just hug your knees into your chest. And feel free to sway side to side, kind of rocking to the left and right. Let's make some circles with the knees, taking the knees away from us and then towards us. And here you start connecting with your breath also, and then go ahead and change directions with those knees. Drawing the knees back and towards you again. Place the feet onto the floor, about hip distance apart. And we're just going to go side to side with the knees. So inhaling into the center. Exhale, dropping the knees off to one side as you gently lift to the other. Let the arms rotate externally so the palms face up. And we're going to be going through that also in this little class. So a nice smooth inhale and exhale, knees to one side, coming to center, dropping to the other. We're going to do one more each direction. This time on the inhale, when you come back to center, just go ahead and hug the knees into the chest. Maybe again a little bit of a sway side to side. And then go ahead and hug the right knee in. Left foot's going to go onto the floor or extending the left leg out, whatever feels better onto you. And just hug that right knee in towards you, and then gently rock it out towards the shoulder and back to midline. And as we come back to center, we're going to extend that leg straight up to the sky. Hands get interlaced behind your hamstring, and just start by pointing and flexing that foot. We'll take a few ankle circles, so circle that one direction, and then the other direction. Stretching out the back of the legs, slide the hands down as far as they will go for you. If you need to bend the knee, and just hug the thigh in towards you. See if you can try to press the shoulder blades down into the floor. And have your biceps, like the biceps are spinning upwards, so you don't want your elbows pointing out to the side. Another breath here. Go ahead and release that leg, but we're going to keep it up to the air. I'm just going to move myself over a little bit so I don't hit the wall. And we're going to take some nice big circles with that leg getting into the hip. One direction we're going to flex, the other direction we're going to point. So wherever you want to start, I'm going to start with flexing my foot, and I'm going to take it outward. Start wherever you want. 3 or 4 big circles, as big as you can get them. I like to have my hands out to the side of me, my arms out to the side, my palms down. That helps keep me from rolling too much from one side to the other. Do one more that direction. Then change the point or flex that foot, and then change the direction of your circle. Back up to center. Now we're going to take that left foot back onto the floor, cross the right ankle over the left thigh, right above the knee. Keep the right knee opening out to the side as much as you can. Reach to the hole with your right hand. Left hand goes outside of that left leg, and hug that left leg in towards you as you keep the right knee opening out. Lay the head and shoulders down. Flex both feet, spread all 10 toes, and keep the arms working a little bit as you're trying to hug that left leg in, right knee pressing down and away from Taking nice deep breaths here. One more round of breath. And then we'll go ahead and release that left foot on the floor, but then we're just going to slide the right thigh over the top of the left thigh. Hips are going to lift and move 1 to 2 inches to the right. Both knees are going to drop to the left as you gently look to the right and trying to draw the right shoulder blade down towards the floor. Again, an external rotation with the arms so palms are facing up. Keep some nice deep breaths here. One more round of breath. So we bring the knees back up. We're going to lift the hips back to line the spine, get it straight. Hug both knees into the chest, maybe a little sway or rock side to side. Right foot onto the floor or right leg extends out. Left leg hugs in, squeeze that knee, that gentle rock out to the side and back to midline. Back to center, leg goes to the sky, hands go behind the hamstring. Start with that point and flex of the foot. Make a few circles with your ankle each direction. Here's where we go ahead and slide the hands down towards the ankle as far as you can. Bend the knee if you need to bend the knee. And notice it may be different on one side. So you may have an issue with one leg or hamstring as I do. And so one leg may not be able to straighten, maybe the other one will. Or maybe just more open on one side. So no worries about that. Always listen to your body and let it direct you. Another breath here. So here's where we start coming at those hip circles. So release the hand, the leg, palms down onto the floor. Remember, point or flex, whichever one you want. I'm going to start with flexing. Big circles, 4 big circles this direction. Change that point or flex, go the other direction. And back up. Here's where to place that right foot onto the floor. Left ankle crosses over the right thigh, top of the knee. We reach through that hole. This time we're going to hug that right leg in towards us. Pressing the left leg open. Flexing both feet, spreading all 10 toes. So remember, the arms are working a little bit here because we're trying to hug that right leg in towards us. Shoulder blades are kind of drawing down into the mat. One more round of breath here. Releasing that right leg, letting that left thigh slide over the cross. The left thigh slides over the right thigh. Hips lift, moving 1 to 2 inches to the left. Both knees drop to the right as we gently look to our left. Draw the left shoulder blade towards the floor. Keeping the breath nice and deep. One more round of breath. As we bring the knees back up, lift up the hips, realign the spine. Uncross the legs, hug the knees into the chest. Little shake or shimmy if you want. Getting into the core a little bit. So right now, both legs go straight up to the sky. You can either have the hands resting on the side of you, the palms down, or you can have the hands underneath the base of the head, either interlacing the hands, or I like to press my fingertips into the base of my head. That just helps support my neck a little bit better, so whatever works best for you. Engage the core, try to keep the low back pressing down into the floor. You may feel a little bit of a lift into the tailbone. Very slowly, we're going to start lowering one leg at a time. Slow down to wherever it feels okay in your back. Slow up. Now you want a little bit more. This is where you lift up the shoulders and the head. And keep your gaze on your toes. Make sure you're not holding your breath, that you are breathing here. And as both legs come up, you may feel that little lift of the hips or tailbone. That's good. Just don't lose that connection with the core and the low back onto the floor. I always like to warm up the core a little bit, sometimes more than others, because we use our core a lot in yoga. And we actually use our core a lot throughout our day, and we just aren't really always aware of it. So it's really good to keep our core as strong as we can. Let's do 2 more on each side. Now notice here also your toes are going out to the side, so you can bring them straight. That's a little bit of inter-rotation that we're also going to be talking about today. Last one. Shoulders lower, head lowers, hug the knees into the chest. Give yourself a nice tight squeeze. Nice deep breath. And then let's let it go. We're going to come on up and come on to all fours. So a few rounds of cat-cow. So go ahead and place the hands under the shoulders, have the fingers spread comfortably, really press down through the thumb and index finger. Knees underneath the hips. On an inhale, belly drops, chest lifts, tail lifts. Exhale, belly towards spine, chin towards chest, tailbone draws down. Inhale. Exhale. Arms stay long and strong. So elbows aren't bending. Let's find ourselves into a neutral position. We're going to take some nice big circles. So we're going to walk the hands a little further forward. If that's enough space for you, that's fine. Or if you feel like you want to take your knees back a little bit also. And just take hips towards heel, big circles coming forward. Let yourself kind of go. Belly may drop. Still finding our breath here. And always feeling aware of what's going on into the hands, where you feel the weight going. If you're feeling the weight bearing to the pinky finger side, so you can bring it more to the inner wrist. Let's change direction with that circle. One more big circle. And don't overthink this. Just let the body kind of direct you. Come back into neutral. Go to child's pose. So here we're going to bring the toes together. Let the knees go a little bit wider. Press the hips back towards the heels. Try to get the heels towards, or the hips towards the heels as much as you can. Then you can collapse the torso between the knees, possibly bringing the forehead to the floor. Now, if the forehead does not come to the floor, you can either stack fist on top of fist, hand on top of hand, stack a book, a yoga block, whatever you may have, and let your forehead rest on that. We want the hips towards the heels, more than we want the forehead to the floor. So use those props to help you get comfortable. Keep the knees wide. Let your body drop between those and take a few breaths. One more breath. Now we're going to walk the hands out in front of you, keeping them shoulder distance apart, getting them very, very long. And then coming up onto all fours. Maybe bring the knees a little closer together. Turn the toes under. Strengthen the arms. Hug in the low belly. Lift the shins. Press the hips back towards the heels. And start straightening the legs. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of alignment here in this downward facing dog because we're going to go through it fairly thoroughly. And here, just pedal out the legs a little bit, bend one knee, straighten the other. Try to get as long as you can from the wrists to the armpits, from the armpits to the hips, from the hips to the heels. And feel free to move. We're trying to move mindfully, but we don't want to keep ourselves or put ourselves into a rigid position. Now go ahead and take the feet about as wide as the mat. Take the hands, walk the hands back to the feet. So you're in a forward fold at the back of the mat. Let your torso just fall between the knees. Let your chin come towards the chest and your crown of the head towards the floor. Let the arms relax. Feel where the weight goes into the feet. Now we're going to lift and come into a halfway position. So here we want to engage the core a little bit to support the spine. Shoulders and hips about on the same level. Either fingertips to the floor, blocks, or shins, whatever works best for you. The core is lifted, sitting bones pressing back. On an exhale, like a rag doll, come all the way down. This time we're going to come all the way up eventually. So we're in halfway position with the inhale. Take your gaze forward, press through your legs, reach your arms to the sky. Reach as long as you can. Bring hands to heart with an exhale. Take a breath here. Let's go into a little side stretch. I'm going to turn this to face you on this. So if, again, feet a comfortable distance apart, about hip distance or a little wider. Inhale, arms reach to the sky. Interlace the finger, the hands, the fingers extend the thumb and index finger like a little Charlie's Angel, like a gun. And we're going to inhale, reach up and over to the right. Pressing the hips a little to the left, but keeping the right waist long. And lengthening to the left side. Keeping the left foot anchored to the floor. On your next inhale, come to center. Exhale, other direction. Hips press to the right. Giving length to the right waist, but still lengthening through the left. Inhale, come to center. Exhale, release the arms. Let's take the feet a little wider apart. So when you reach your arms out, the ankles and wrists are going to be about the same distance. We're going to turn the toes out a little bit, bend the right knee into a side lunge, take the hands out, and then walk the hands to the left. So we go to the left and slightly forward, bending into the right knee, pressing to the outer edge of the left foot. Keeping the hips a little lifted. And if you're pressing to the outer edge of that left foot, you're going to feel the inner thigh lifting up and away from the floor a little bit. Just come to center, walk the hands to center, bend the other leg, watch the hands to the right. Now again, we're leaning a little bit forward in the ball of the foot, and we're not taking the hands to the foot, we're taking the hands in front of us, pressing hips to the left, reaching arms to the right. Another breath here. Straighten the legs, bring the hands back to center. Heel to the feet. towards each other. Come into halfway position, take your gaze forward, press the legs, reach to the sky, come all the way to standing. Get nice and long, exhale, hands down to the heart. Relax the shoulders. Close the eyes for a moment. All right, a little bit of warm up. So we're gonna get into alignments. We're gonna start with internal and external rotation of the arms and the legs. So external rotation is when the palms face forward, the whole bicep area of the arm all spins forward. Internal rotation is just the absolute opposite. So palms face back, shoulders curve in, and this is what we want to stay away from. This is where we spend a lot of our days with driving, with eating, with typing, with reading, anything we're doing. We're in that internal rotation, which collapses the chest and will get us into that rounded shoulder and rounded back with a forward head, which is not a good place to be. So we want to stay nice and healthy, opening everything up, opening through the collarbone. So with that positioning, every move we make when we go to lunges, that's where we're always starting. And you can just play around with that and feel the difference if you internally rotate and see where that goes and what it does to your shoulder and to your neck and how much distance you can get with the external rotation all the way up. Internal rotation, not so much. So whether we're going into a lunge, let's take a little lunge here for you. I'm going to start first with that internal rotation. So I have my palm facing back, and I'm coming into a side lunge. This is where I'm at with internal rotation. This is as far as I can go. Now let me take that down and let's take it into external rotation, palm facing forward, up and over. I can go all the way overhead and I can keep that arm straight. So the thumb kind of points towards the ceiling. Using that core is where we lift ourselves back up. Let's just change sides, try it on the other side. Let's start with that internal rotation just to see what happens. Come into that little side lunge, up and over. How's that feel? What do you notice? Come back down. Let's spin it to external rotation, opening through the chest to the collarbone, all the way up, and you can get all the way over. Internal rotation, external rotation, and this is where we want to be. Now with the legs, we're coming into internal and external rotation. Internal rotation is like the thighs are spinning in and back. We want to keep the knees and legs strong, but not hyperextend the knees. So we don't want to push the knees back. We straighten the knees and walk them out. Then we're getting to our low back and we're losing our core. Ribs are popping out. So it's a drawing down the tailbone, a hugging in of the ribs. Strength through the feet. Find that balance and levelness into the feet. Engage the legs, soften the knees, as if you're trying to press the heels slightly away from each other. That might give you a little bit of a sensation of what we're going through to the internal rotation of the legs. Now, standing here in mountain pose, you get the legs solid, and we're gonna have a little external rotation with the arms as we relax the shoulders, but yet we're still trying to grow through the crown of the head. Feet are solidly planted into the mat. Tailbone is in a neutral, pelvis is in a neutral position. So let's get into a little internal rotation of the legs when we're in downward facing dog. Again, we're going to go in through down dog, so I'm just going to show you to start with just with the internal rotation of how we lift the legs. So I'm just going to plant my hands, get them steady. I'll get into the rest of it. After this, toes turn under, shins, knees lift, hips go backwards, heels straighten the legs. I'm going to bring my toes together just to create a tripod. So when I internally rotate, as I lift my leg, you notice my toes are pointing straight down. So there's a little internal rotation with that leg. Toes point straight down. Here's when we aren't mindful or have an external rotation, and we're lifting it out to the side, and probably not lifting it behind us either. We're probably lifting it outside of our hip. So think about internal rotation, engaging the foot, lifting the leg. Now line up for downward facing dog. So often I hear that downward facing dog hurts our wrist. And it does, because we generally, when we first get into this, we're doing down dog and we're pressing through the heel of our hand. So we really are jamming that wrist. So we want to use the thumb pad, this part of the hand, this part of the inner wrist, your index finger, and these fingers kind of come as we're trying to squeeze towards each other. We use the finger pads or fingerprints, so whatever makes more sense to use, to you for that. We use the metacarpal knuckles down here, the bones. That's what we're gripping with. So we make a little bit of a suction cup with the palm of our hand. That'll keep us out of the heel of our hand and keep our wrist feeling better, because we're always trying to find length through the wrist. We don't want to find a 90-degree angle or as close as we can in our wrist when we're in downward facing dog. That is also going to hurt, and that also means you're pressing pretty much through the heel of your hand. Arms are always long and strong. Shoulders are always plugged in, so we don't want to have the shoulders creeping up towards our ear and doing the little turtleneck kind of thing, but pressing down, gaining space. So set up for this. Hands are underneath the shoulders. Knees are underneath the hips. Core is engaged to support the low back. Now, we're all built a little different. We've all had different experiences in our life, so find where your hand position works best for you. Generally, we want the fingers, especially index fingers, kind of pointing forward. Sometimes it's at 1 and 11 o'clock, and some people, through their shoulders are tight, need to turn them out a little bit more. Whatever works best for you, just try to keep the hands really engaged, nice and strong, the arms nice and strong. So this little external rotation with the arms, like you're trying to wrap the biceps forward and the eye of the elbow forward. Pressing through the inner thumb, index finger. They have a gentle squeezing towards each other, which is going to press the finger pads, fingerprints into the mat. It's also going to give you that little suction cup of the palm of the hand. I'm going to turn my toes under, external rotate through the arms, hugging in the core, floating the knees, pressing my heels back. Now right here, I'm pressing right through here. That's where a lot of the pressing is coming through, not through the heel of my hand. Press back, start straightening the legs, walk it out. You can kind of lift the heel of the hand a little bit just to get the sensation, but that's not where we're starting. We're not going to keep them lifted like that. We're just going to have that sensation that you can slide a piece of paper under that, and that you're feeling your knuckles, your fingerprints really working. And here, make sure the elbows aren't pointing out to the side. Keep them wrapping in. Press your shoulders back. It's easy for the shoulders to start sneaking forward again. And when that happens, we're once again into the wrist. So press back, long and strong. Pedal out the legs. Upper arms are lifted, like the biceps are squeezing in a little bit towards your cheeks. Head is in a comfortable position. Coming out of this, down onto your knees. If you've been doing this, take your rest in child's pose for a couple of breaths. Maybe you can sit up, rotate the wrists, move the fingers. And let's run through that one more time. So setting up, hands under shoulders. Comfortable distance apart, about shoulder distance unless you're tighter through the shoulders. If you're tighter through the shoulders, take the hands wider. If you're tighter through the hamstrings, take the feet wider. Engage those arms. Feel those external rotation going on. Feel that thumb and index finger pressing down and squeezing towards each other. Fingerprints. Those first knuckles right there, kind of pressing down. Hugging the core, float the knees, press the hips back. Feel that you're pressing down through this part of the hand especially, and the fingerprints. Start walking it out. Now let's practice with that internal rotation. Go ahead and bring the big toes to touch. Float one leg to the sky. I don't care which one it is. Use that internal rotation. Feel what that feels like. Notice if you're scooting the shoulders forward. Press yourself back. Using those knuckles, using those fingerprints, using that thumb and index finger. Go ahead and drop that leg. Bring the toes to touch. Float the other leg up. Internal rotation. Take a look at it. Look where the toes are pointing. See where they're pointing, then make that adjustment. We're gonna come down. Let's come down onto our knees. Go ahead and take a wiggle of fingers, rotate the wrist a little bit. Now let's get into stepping through, coming in from downward facing dog, going into a lunge. I know a lot of people, especially when they're beginners, having trouble with that, so we'll give you a couple little things that'll make it a little bit easier to get the foot stepped forward. So let's set ourselves up for down dog. Find the strong arms, find that external rotation. Plug in through the hands, float it back, bring the feet together. Now I'm going to float a leg to the sky, so hopefully you can see this side better, internal rotation. Now I'm going to go high into the ball of the other foot, so you can see how everything lifts. This is going to give me more space. Now I'm going to start bending the knee in towards me as I shift the shoulders forward. Squeeze the knee in, maybe look towards the hand. Step that foot forward. Now, if that foot does not come underneath the knee, if it only comes part way through, that's okay. Grab the ankle, hop it on up there. Take a moment to make sure the knee and ankle are lined up. This is what happens often as people get into this position where the knee is jutting out in front of the ankle. Get the knee and ankle into alignment. You're going to engage the core. I'm going to come up into a high lunge here. So also feel free to put one hand or both hands onto that thigh to help lift yourself up until you're comfortable enough of getting up. Now when we're in a lunge position, another alignment, so look down the toes. Now I'm going to turn to face you so you can see this. We want the knee pointing forward. When I look down, I should see my big toe or my first two toes. If I see my pinky toe, that means I'm collapsing in. There's going to be injuries, all misalignment. So you hug that hip back, look down, make sure you can see your toes. Back leg can stay soft. If you straighten the back leg, which is great, just make sure that everything else is in alignment. You may have to lean forward a little bit. Core is engaged. You're coming straight up with shoulders and hips stacked. You're probably going to want to keep that back leg a little bit soft. Look down, make sure that knee's not collapsing in. It happens all the time. If you want, take the arms to the sky. When you're doing this, relax the shoulders down the back. Making sure you're not going into a back bend. Nothing happens, especially if we straighten the back leg. We don't want that back bend. Come in. Nice and strong to the core. Coming down, hands can frame the foot. Sometimes I like to walk that foot out to the side and then step it back. Okay, let's try that in one little flow from down dog, stepping the foot forward, coming up to a high lunge or crescent pose. Everything's engaged, arms are long and strong, external rotation, lifting the hips, taking the hips up, floating leg to sky with internal rotation, coming high into the ball, the other foot, shifting forward, hugging the knee in as close as we can. If you can't step it all the way to the hand, step it where you can and grab the ankle. I'll do it that way, grab that ankle, step it forward. Check yourself out. Make sure knee and ankle are lined up. Also make sure that the right foot's on the right side of the mat, left foot's on the left side of the mat so you're not on a tight curve. When you're ready, come up, take hands to the thigh, come all the way up. Reach arms to the sky, soften the shoulders down the back. On exhale, let's follow with our core. Take the hands to the floor, step it back, knees to the floor, just take your rest. Okay, so we're going to run through warrior positions. That's going to have internal and external rotation with the legs. So let's go ahead and start into a downward facing dog and stepping through. I'm going to float my left leg to the sky. Let's bring that space, get space, step the foot to the hand. I'm going to look down at my feet. I'm going to make sure that I'm not on a tightrope. Right foot's on the right side of the mat, left foot's on the left side of the mat. If I have an imaginary line down the mat, my feet are in the proper position. Now I'm going to spin that back foot down, but notice it's at an angle. It's not perpendicular, it's not parallel, I guess, with the back of the mat. It's at a little bit of an angle. So when I come up to warrior two, sorry, my hair's getting into my face, came out of my pin. I'm going to settle in here. So let's not add the arms in right now. Let's just start with the legs. So find the legs, find a place to adjust. Feel free to move around in here till you find what feels best to you. Now we want to not get too short of a stance here because then we can't get really anywhere in this pose. So if you can, try to widen your stance front to back a little bit. Again, making sure you've got that space. Now some people will say they want heel arch alignment, and that's fine. But sometimes that can be a little hard because again, we're back onto that tightrope, and so we find ourselves kind of wobbly or not feeling space enough. So if we have heel alignment, and maybe even a little bit wider than heel alignment from left to right, we can get the hips more open. So find that place, start bending into the front knee. This is where we're going to have external rotation with that front leg. So we're externally rotating that. We want that hip to hug back. We want to see the big toe just like we were in a lunge. Back leg, that's an internal rotation. So we're internally rotating that. We're bringing that inner thigh, spinning it in and back, pressing through the outer edge of that back foot. You want to have like a lifted arch on that. I'll often lift my big toe up just to try to press to the outer edge of that foot. So when we lower down into warrior two, let me take the arms out. This often can happen. So we were reaching out, and this also can often happen. We're reaching back. So we want to just lower straight down, shoulders over hips. Take your time, practice with it. Shoulders over hips. Find that you have that. Once you have that, now let's look back at that front leg. Has it collapsed in or is it still in alignment? What about the back leg? Has it been forgotten about? Is it collapsing down and you're rolling into the arch? Press back, press to the outer edge. Sometimes we want to find our leg position and get all of that. Internal rotation, external rotation, before we add the arms. So feel free to have hips, hands to hips, whatever feels good to you. Then if you want to add the arms, just take note of where you are. So let's come into tree pose. I often see people having a hard time with trees, so a natural place that we seem to want to put our foot is on our knee. That's not where we want it. We want it in position one, which is heel on top of ankle, foot into calf, or get it and bring foot up into thigh. So here it's a matter of pressing heel into thigh, thigh into heel, trying to keep the knee open. And same thing if it's on the calf. We're pressing foot into calf, calf into foot, trying to keep the knee open. Tailbone is always drawn down. So there's another thing. Often say it's like you play golf, it's kind of like a golf swing. There's like a lot of little things you have to remember to do. So pelvis is a neutral position. You aren't collapsing through the ribs. We're lengthening through the waist, but we're not going into a back bend when we do that. Everything's solid. Tailbone down, taking that foot where it is, lifting ourselves up through the crown of the head. Sorry about that. And then kind of giving ourselves a hug from the outside in to keep ourselves nice and solid. Core is engaged, everything's engaged. Keep your eyes focused. If your eyes dart around, then you're more than likely also going to move around. Hand position, anywhere that works for you. Take your time getting into these poses. When you go to change sides, feel the shifting of the weight. Feel that standing leg nice and solid, already feeling yourself lifting up, already feel the position of your pelvis in a neutral place. And then taking your foot nice and slowly to where it needs to go. Slowly moving the arms. So a little bit of a grace is what we're trying to find. And that's pretty much with any one-legged balance, is just feeling the shifting of the weight, feeling us squeeze into ourselves, floating the leg wherever it is that we may go, warrior threes, wherever it is, hugging in, moving mindfully. So last one I want to do today is for plank pose. So plank pose, same arms as we do in downward facing dog. They're nice and long and strong, external rotation. When we come into plank, we don't have the booty up like this, and nor do we have it collapsing down. We're hugging up, pressing the heels away from us, draw the tailbone towards the heels. Hands, arms are pressing down strong like the floor is trying to raise up at you, like it's an elevator floor raising up, and you're pressing it down so it can't raise. We are not dropping the face towards the floor. Face is lifted so the back and neck is nice and long. Staying here. Even go in front of the mirror if you have one to see what's going on with your body. Sometimes we can't feel it, but we can see it. So thank you for joining me. I hope this video helps you. Namaste.